Okay, guys, we're so excited to have everyone back in your car or on your walk, wherever you are listening to this, for another episode of the Ripple Effect podcast. And today, Lindsay and I are literally so excited because we have an awesome guest that I've known, since we were little kids, just through church things, when you have to explain all the church functions from back in the day, it's like, they're like, what? But Blake and I go way back, and he is one of the coolest entrepreneurs locally and beyond that I know. And I love following you and your family online and keeping up. And so, today's going to be a lot about really entrepreneurship, and Blake's going to talk just some cool stuff about like fear and overcoming self-doubt and stuff like that. So I am just excited.
Yeah, well, thanks, Lauren. You nailed it. Definitely, I've known you a while. I honestly don't know if I could go back to like when we officially met. It's just like we were always around each other kind of thing, right?
For sure.
So, thank you for that intro. I would call myself an entrepreneur maybe now, but I'm still working on getting to that level, I think. So I'm in the early stages of it for sure.
Listen,
we
are
talk about
all
that
there.
a lot. We talk about how like sometimes it's fake it till you make it. Just be yourself. I don't think anybody ever really feels like.
No.
I think especially as an entrepreneur, you feel like that's such a like, you've made it title.
Yes.
I think, like to say like I'm an entrepreneur, like
it's either
I don't know that you ever really feel like you get there.
It's thrown around loosely too these days,
that's
right?
True.
It's like entrepreneur in your Instagram bio. You're almost like, I don't want to tell anybody this because they're going to be like, okay, that's code for you live in your parents' basement for sure. You're for sure making no
don't
money.
have a real job.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Well, Blake is humble, and Lindsay, you're kind of coming in at a cool angle too because you don't know as much.
No.
But I've gotten to watch from a distance, and Blake is a successful entrepreneur. Like, he's going to be
From what I've seen,
very humble about it. But I want to just talk about, like, give us some background on. So a lot of our listeners are either college students, grad students, or in that early career transition. And I say early, but we have listeners that are also in their 30s. I'm in my 30s now, that are kind of like, holy crap, I'm in this job or I'm in this life that I don't want to be living. So take us on like a little overview of your journey and how you decided to start pursuing entrepreneurship.
Yeah, sure. I'd have to say I've felt like the gene maybe was there from early on. I mean, now that I'm getting older, some of these stories kind of like come to memory where you can pull that from your past. And I mean, I think of even being like a kid growing up. So I have family that were entrepreneurs, right? I had my grandfather who started a business young, like right out of high school. Like he didn't even go to college and started like a trucking company and then into a construction company that he's even built commercial buildings, around my hometown that you could still see today. And so that was there. My mom was an entrepreneur and had a retail business when I was really young, probably below around 5 years old, actually, we'll say.
I didn't know that,
so that was an experience I had as a kid. And then my dad, who worked for my grandfather, ventured out on his own in 2006 and has a residential contracting company. So I've been around it forever, started like helping him when I could. And you grow up around that kind of just a gritty lifestyle, right? You just have to make ends meet sometimes. And my dad especially went through the Great Recession period doing that. And some tough times happened there. So I've seen a lot of things, and I think it just developed a gritty kind of characteristic that you need to be an entrepreneur, and that was just by default. But then also growing up, I think I had a creative mindset as well, a dreaming mindset. I never thought anything was impossible. Like I could remember being a kid who I might have been 10 years old in like my front yard, and I had this idea that I was going to make a miniature golf course in our yard, and someone was going to stop and like take part in it and golf.
Did you do it?
Oh yeah, I mean I had the mower out there trying to mow like a green type of grass.
That is amazing. That's like the coolest childhood entrepreneur story actually that I've heard.
I wish it was a success, but I mean I never really had like the lemonade stand thought.
You just started a putt-putt
always
course.
thinking outside the box.
Right.
Yes.
Good. So you have that, and I just feel like it's always kind of been there. From the start, and it's kind of led to not settling. I mean, I don't know if I ever really felt like I found my way even through college,
Yes.
Going through 4 years. I did, business administration degree and felt
that was my
I learned-
catch-all degree because I was like, I just want to start my business and I don't really want to be here, but this seems like it makes sense.
And you can pull things you learned from that, but I still, it's like just finding my way through all that. And like I said, really in just the last couple of years, I feel like I'm finally kind of getting in a groove, and maybe we're getting somewhere with this, which is encouraging.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's been good.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background? Like, so went to college.
Yeah,
and then what?
Did you
like,
hop straight
what's your
into
story?
Well, because I remember loosely when you started Wines Co. The clothing.
Wins Company.
Wins Company.
Yep.
I always call it Wines.
It's
Wins.
50-50, like everybody.
Okay.
Goes both ways.
I do it every time. So I kind of loosely remember that, but yeah, take us on like you were in college, had the idea, like, and then tell us what it is.
Right, sure,
too.
absolutely. So Wins Company is a mountain lifestyle apparel brand, and really I would say that's the first like legitimate business I actually started, and I did get the idea during college. I was I think in my last year of school.
Did you go to UVA?
Yeah, UVA was.
We're gonna be working with them next semester.
Sweet.
So they're gonna hear this, which is exciting.
I've heard a lot of great things they're doing marketing wise, but started it while I was in school there, and the whole thing was, so we were in this time where e-commerce had taken off tremendously. I really had only been shopping online as a customer for probably just a couple years. And you like brands are popping up all the time, t-shirt brands and all that stuff. And I'm like, I've not yet seen Appalachian like inspired apparel that I would buy and wear,
Yes.
And there's an outside perception of like what rural Appalachia is like anyway. And so I'm just like, why is there nothing out there like that? So that ultimately made me want to start this brand that kind of put thoughtful design into apparel, into anything, shirts, hats, stickers, all that kind of stuff to get started. And something I would be proud to wear, and maybe other young people excited about the Appalachia would be happy to wear too, and to rep, right?
Yes.
Because not only if you're there.
I have a sweatshirt.
Yeah.
One
if
of
you're
the OG
from away,
sweatshirts.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was awesome. So that's why I started it, and what I wanted to do, I didn't know in the beginning what it was going to look like, but I wanted that to somehow tie back into community effort as well.
Okay.
And
I
so
love that.
we just started it, and I was like figuring out how it was going to do that. I was just like, let's sell some T-shirts first, right? And so we did that, and local support was great at first. We're sending orders just like within 60 miles away, probably mostly. But then it kind of took off a little bit, and some better designs followed, and a little bit better social media.
I've
and
always
stuff
thought
like
it was
that.
really great.
And
of
it went
course.
well. Yeah, you should.
We also think our first throw pillows were really great.
Yeah, Lindsay helped me sew
And
my
we
first
sewed
pillows
them
in
in
my college
Lauren's
apartment years
living
ago.
room.
I forgot about
Yeah,
that.
like we
Always
were like so
forget.
proud, and then now like I have several
I
for
have
sentimental
burlap.
reasons.
They're made
you know,
out
and
of
I'm
burlap,
like,
people. The most uncomfortable
man,
material you could ever select.
she also
for a
didn't know how to
pillow.
sew.
I
That's
didn't.
awesome.
You don't need to know how to sew to have a pillow company.
Except
learn that.
Except when you don't have anybody to manufacture it.
Yeah,
It's like your
it's fine.
friends.
We figured it out.
Yeah,
but
it worked. But no, so I get
That's
like,
awesome.
I love when people talk about the evolution of their
progression,
business
yes.
and like how people look back
And
at
you
it
don't
and
even
go,
know how inspiring that is, though. I mean, I've followed you the whole time, like while you're doing that, and I'm like, that is awesome. I
I
love
feel the same.
What
I
you're
know.
doing.
I like fangirl over you, and like I don't know. I just think it's cool. I don't
well,
know.
and it's cool when you find other young people that you see just going for it.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, just doing it like not like you said, like not really knowing what it's going to turn into, having like the loose thought we talked about like having like pillars of a plan,
and just
Yeah.
and
doing
then just
it.
doing it.
Right.
Just doing it. And your stuff is great. And you have paid so much attention to all the details that I've noticed. And I just love that. And so, okay, so walk us down because you have, you're doing a lot now. So
Yeah,
what was
quite a
the
bit.
transitions from there to what you're doing now?
Yeah. As that kind of progressed, and how I got to turn it into a community-minded brand was a partnership with a state-funded organization actually in Southwest Virginia who was working very heavily in housing development, economic development, and really kind of rebranding Southwest Virginia. So, I mean, if you've seen some of their branding, you probably would recognize it because they've had a decent marketing effort in
Yeah.
Tri-Cities and around Abingdon area and
For sure.
and even upstate, on up the state a little bit in Virginia. So yeah, that partnership, we got to join forces and help them create some different looking merchandise than they had ever had before, and help start a program for retail partners to sell this to visitors and people who were just excited.
Your designs.
My designs mixed with some of their branding, just kind of
Cool.
a collaborative effort.
That's awesome.
And that was probably, where it's taken off to now. COVID has had its way with some of that, and we're navigating that as well. But so from all that, and I decided that experience, that couple years of design work, of figuring out maybe how social media works in some facets. There's a lot to it, but and just that experience, I actually wanted to turn that into a creative service. And I actually started just 2 years ago. It feels like we lost a year. I want to say like a year ago,
Yeah,
but
I'm
it's
with
2 now at least, maybe more. A creative service agency, really, but it's just me right now. But that focused on merchandise, social media, and just branding in general. Because those are the things I'm really passionate about, and I would love to work with anybody on that. I love being able to help someone realize what they have and how to make it maybe more visually appealing and tell that story a little better, as you're very familiar with.
Yes.
So I wanted to do that, and that I've seen some, got to do some fun things with that. It's really still trying to build that up right now currently. But in the midst of all that, that kind of ties us back, brings us even further into the near future, or the near past. It's the last year we've launched a coffee lounge in downtown Norton.
Which is so cool.
looks so
I have
cool.
not been there yet. And
It's neat.
I've been following it for so long. And the other day it hit me. I was like, I need to drive there to get coffee.
Yeah, we
Like,
need
I
to
need
just
to
take-
truck my little self down there, because it is so, what you guys are doing, it's so cool. And if you have Instagram, you need to follow them, because it's so fun. Like, your all's content is so engaging. I don't know. Anyways, that's a sidebar.
Lincoln Road Coffee Lounge, like the president, Lincoln Road. I always have to say that when I like saying the email, like the President Road.
Yes, President
Lincoln Road Coffee Lounge. It is a mouthful, but yeah, it's great. And we're talking about people just going for it, and especially like local entrepreneurs in the area, how motivating that is, sometimes inspiring rather. That's how I got tied in with that. So in college, I had a couple friends that launched this business, a husband and wife, and their brother. They founded Lincoln Road Coffee.
Was it a truck at first? Was there
Even before that, it was cold brew coffee in mason jars.
Oh,
that's
cool.
all they were doing.
Like literally grassroots. Like,
Yes.
That's awesome.
Brewing this at their house on Lincoln Road, putting it in mason jars, selling it to the community, really just making like hand deliveries.
And how
essentially.
Appalachian.
I love
Yeah,
it.
it
In the
is
mason
so
jar.
cool.
I love it.
Something legal in the mason jar from
I
our
love
region.
it.
So.
But some good cold brew coffee, and really that was before the craze at that time. That was before you could get it like fast food coffee and all that.
I kind of remember seeing stuff on social media. That is weird. Cold brew is such a thing now, but then it was kind of like this
was weird.
unique, like.
If you had anyone over the age of 30, they're like, cold coffee. What
Yeah.
are you doing? That's what happens when my coffee just gets cold from
Like, that's
sitting
not
there.
desirable.
Yeah.
Yes, that's like the nasty
That's not
part
hard
we
to
don't
do,
want.
right? That's
Yeah.
not hard to do. So yeah, that's what we were dealing with. But I just helped them work like the trailer. You talked about it. It ended up morphing into a food truck / trailer experience where we had it on tap, nitrogen infused, and all that early on in the game. And so I got to get involved with that. But then just a couple years break from that, and then found out that one of the original founders had kind of revamped the business a little bit, started a roastery in eastern Kentucky, Pikeville, not far from here. That's where he was living. So they were then now roasting the coffee as well, which was another level, and still brewing cold brew. But then we wanted to open this experience, like this flagship coffee lounge experience. A unique model, really, just some of the cool things we're doing, and put it in Norton, kind of where it all started in Wise, right next to Norton in the same area.
Yeah.
So it all just kind of came together, and I got to come on board and be a partner in that, and be part owner of the coffee lounge, and I got to put the team together and kind of get to lead us into building these phases, because we were going to launch this pre-COVID, like April of 2020.
Okay,
Oh,
so like
talk
And
about a
then-
pivot.
And then it's like we pumped the brakes and just regrouped and figured out, well, what can we do? So then 4 or 5 months passed. We opened in August.
Okay.
And on a very scaled back kind of way.
Yes.
Open doors. We're doing just, hopefully, or we were hoping that people would at least walk in and get coffee and leave kind of thing.
Yes.
And so that happened. And it really kind of took off, and we've just been expanding hours, expanding offerings since then, and it's kind of morphing into almost the final vision that we've had for it, which we're excited. We hope this summer we can kind of really see the full effect.
Well, and I'd say that will be something
so
like
cool.
We also talk a lot on the podcast about like when you do have to make changes and those things that they teach you, like those unexpected lessons that you learn. Like I would imagine
we all
launching
learned them
like
in
this is, that's
2020.
a big thing that like launching something and having to kind of like break your heart and scale it back, and but the ability to learn and transition. I don't want to say when the stakes are lower, but you're forced to by regulations of the state and whatnot as to how many people you can accommodate, and
Well,
I'm curious to see how when you look back on it, you see, oh, it's different than we thought it would be, but it's better because, because I think that's always a great opportunity in those transitions.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, that just proves like what passion you have for what you're doing and the team that you're surrounded with, because it would have been so easy to just be like, okay, well, back burner
next
till
time,
2022.
So, and that huge kudos to you for, like we said, just doing it.
Well, thanks.
And making it through. You opened a food basically service during a pandemic, and you're still standing.
And then the whole thing was it's not the most encouraging, but I was like, if we could survive
that's
this,
what I was just
then,
thinking. If you
it's
could
gonna
get through
be
this,
good.
you can get through anything.
If we can pay the bills like through this and pay the team and still make some money, like
you
we're
started
gonna be all right.
it like in the valley,
and like
only going up from here.
Well, for sure. And so you do all of this stuff, have done all of this stuff, have such an interesting story. How old are you?
I'm 27.
27.
I'm claiming it for another 2 weeks.
Good. Claim it. You've done all this stuff. Not only does he do this, he is a husband, a dad of 2 children under 5, and his wife is an entrepreneur, which I don't know if she would ever come on, but
you make everyone feel welcome.
Okay,
she would do it.
She has to, or I'll come to you guys. Like we'll take we'll take the show on the road. But
That'd be dope.
and he's a worship leader at his church. I mean, you should. I know it's hard. We talked about this before we started recording, to be like, oh my gosh, like I've done nothing, but like you are just really going after it and doing so much, and it's so exciting. But that's the glamorous piece of it.
Yeah.
So I want you to tell us, like a lot of our people and me, it's like, how do you? Okay, you've done all of these things, but I'm sure they haven't happened without fears, doubts, insecurities. Can I do this? So like talk us through some of that and like your experience with that imposter syndrome type thing, and kind of how you decided to get through that, or to just, they're going to be here, but I'm going to go on anyway.
Yeah, I think the ending of that was the most accurate description, right? I don't know that you ever fully overcome some of those internal hurdles. Maybe you're able to channel them a little better, at least in my case. I think deal with a lot of fear of failure, but a lot of maybe ending up in a place where when you fail, you won't seem impressive to other people. Like that's such a tough thing, and I hate that you have to say that sometimes, but just trying to be real, like chasing those dreams, it's like it's such a thing that so many people don't understand, like the risk of it, and like why would you put yourself through all that and those kind of things, to where they was like, why even try that you worry, like that's their thinking all the time about you, right?
I still there's still people in my family that have no idea what I do. The other day I told my mom, I was like, I have this pitch event next week, and I was like, I'm inviting everybody that's confused to this event, and they can hear what I'm doing, because it's so disheartening sometimes, because you're just like, they think I'm just doing nothing. Anyways, carry on. I'm just with you on that still to this day.
That's good to hear. I don't talk to enough people like that, I think, like you guys.
Yeah. Well, and the thing
we need
too is like when a lot of people, you say, well, I started this business, blah, blah, blah. I think myself sometimes even like you think, how does somebody have the financial means to do this and to start this? When then you break it down, the financial piece is sometimes a challenge. But for me, at least, and I think most entrepreneurs or small business owners, the larger piece to overcome is that internal narrative of I've just got to do this. Like, that is such a big thing to overcome. And hearing about you doing, 3 different things, and then, your wife and her entrepreneurial things as well. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like the mental gymnastics that you guys have had to go through to do that. It's part of it that really, unless you've done it, people don't understand.
Right, and it is always there. I think one thing that helps get through that, though, is what you mentioned, like even my wife, who probably, I think she would say this, and never in her wildest dreams would think she would have an entrepreneurial spirit about her.
Awesome.
Decides she wants to pursue something like that, and then you're like, okay, well maybe I inspired that in her in some degree to make her feel like she could chase those things and that she has support. That's big too, right? Is having that support as well. So I think when you see that in other people and things like this, when you're able to get that energy and then come back home and think it is all worth it, even if there are those battles and those struggles, especially if you can see the vision at the end of the day. And that's one thing too, I think, as entrepreneurs and dreamers in general, and for me growing up, was I thought everyone thought like I did. I thought they saw these like visions of things happening and how things could be better and all this stuff. Like, but they don't. I've realized, like, not many people think that way.
Right. Like, we're like kind of the exception to the rule. I thought I was the rule. I thought that's how everybody was.
There's 2 moments, like, piggybacking off of that. For one, I thought everybody seen the world that way. And people are like, why don't you just calm down and, like, quit trying to do everything? I'm like, that's not an option. Yeah. Like, I literally cannot see the world any other way. My parents struggled with that initially because they're not entrepreneurial, but they finally figured out, like, this is who she is and it's okay. She's actually going to make it. But it was always like I had this restlessness inside of me that I couldn't. And yes, I thought that they don't. And so it's a unique gift. And like, I mean, obviously I'm always going to fall like a little bit on the spiritual side, although I don't care where anybody else falls, but this is where I fall, is that God puts certain things inside of certain people for a reason. And for us to harness that and do our best with it, I think is being a good steward of a really good gift. And somehow I guess you just find the strength like to kind of push through the negativity and stuff. But you can try to squash down that entrepreneurial spirit, but it's just like somebody having the desire and the skill set to become a surgeon. It's just kind of there. So I don't know.
It always ends up bubbling over.
Yes.
Because even in jobs that I would do that, I would think like, I'm just going to just work a job.
Just be normal.
No,
100%.
I'm always trying to find ways to like make it better. We should try to do this. Julia at the spa, like she could tell you how many times I've been like, we need to sell these products. And she's like, no, Lindsay, we don't. But that, because I'm just always, that's the way my brain is programmed to be. Yeah. And the world needs people like us, because otherwise there will be no evolution.
They need people like us, and they need some people that are like far different than us.
They need people like us, and then they need
people to run the financial side of everything.
People that calm us down and keep us grounded too. So that's the thing. But and talking about like the spiritual piece of it, for me, when I was launching Bellmead, it was like, okay, so by the end of the day, every day, I told myself, this is the worst idea ever. What are you even thinking? People are gonna, like all these things that you say in your head, and then the Bible verse that kept coming back to me was, his mercies are new every morning. Because every morning I would wake back up and I would think, no, you know what? This is important to me.
Yeah.
And if it'll make anybody else's life, if it helps one person be a little happier this holiday season, or a little, and I'm like, obviously not doing brain surgery here. I'm decorating Christmas trees. But like, it was just like, that like refreshed me every morning. And so I think that's the thing, is like all of those, it's not one big start. It's a million tiny starts as you're going. Like you have to
big or small, like it's all valuable. And I think we all fall in the same line of like a driving purpose is creating something that brings someone else happiness.
Yes.
Yeah, whether that is a service, or whether that's a cup of coffee, whether that's Christmas decoration. Like if you can provide that to somebody, it just makes it worthwhile.
Yeah,
in the end, right?
For sure. So how do you, like, if you had to give some like tangible tips, and you can even think back to you're talking to yourself when you were very first starting out, like what would you go back and tell yourself? What tips would you give yourself if you're like in that phase where you're letting those limiting beliefs win?
It's good. It's a good question. I think for one, start just get it started, start doing something.
Yes.
And I can say that with the brand, the Wins company, just the T-shirt brand and all that, looking back, I'm like, that was not very great design work. And I'm maybe not as proud of that product as I would be something more recent. But if you never start, you'll never become what it takes to be what you want to be.
True.
So
like,
good.
I think we can look anywhere in this world, and sometimes I'll just say, I think I'm not the person to reach that goal, that dream. But what I've come to realize in the last year, 2 years, is that on that journey to getting there, you do become that person, right? If you stick with it, if you get through the tough times. So it's getting started and just constantly reminding myself, I'm not that person yet, but I can become that person on my way there.
Yes.
So good.
And I think a lot of entrepreneurs would probably have that. Well, that have a success story would share that opinion.
For
maybe.
sure. For sure. In the starting, like, oh my gosh, I started a nonprofit originally, and then I started a consumer goods company, and then I had a meltdown and quit everything. And now I have a tech company. I don't even upgrade my cell phone regularly until literally.
go.
So, like, I'm not a tech savvy person, but if you would have told me at 18, when I had this idea to do this one small thing, that I would be sitting here trying to do what I'm doing now, I definitely have not reached any pinnacle of anything. And honestly, I don't know that I will, but I've learned, just like you said, it's the feeling fear. Like, I get nervous still when we bring guests on for a podcast, because I'm like, oh, well, what if I can't do the conversation right? Or what if this? But it's like, you have to let yourself start to, like, reprogram your brain to where that feeling means, like, I'm going to grow. I'm going to learn a new skill.
This is about to be good.
Because you're not going to just not feel that. You're
No.
never going to feel like, I'm just going to start and everything's going to be fine.
Well, and the thing too, I think that's important to remember. So one thing I always say is, don't worry, be crappy. Like, if you don't have a starting
like that too.
point, you can't get better. And if you
Don't
look
worry.
back, it's my motto.
I love
it really
that.
Is. Like,
Gotta start
'cause
somewhere.
sometimes progress over perfection, you know.
Yeah.
But if you start out and you never change and you never evolve, then you're not growing. And we all know, in the business, in any industry in business spectrum, if you're not evolving, if you're not stepping forward, you're being pushed to the back.
And you don't see the stories enough of the progress, because people don't share that,
Right.
right?
And
They share
it's such
the
a
highlights.
gradual
That's what we see.
evolution that unless Instagram's made it a little easier, because you can, like, really do, like, a deep scroll and you can kind of
True.
see some evolution of
True.
things, but it's still not even near
Not
the
the rough
story
stuff.
Oh,
that
no.
the
Not
owner
you
would tell
crying
you.
in
Yeah.
your bedroom or on your living room floor. Like, I absolutely can't do this. I mean, I would be lying if I didn't say I might not have, like, a crying breakdown every week. But, I mean, 2 nights ago, I was just like, no, not 2 nights ago, last night, Wednesday night, I was like, is this even going to help anybody? Like, is this doing anything? Like, you're just never, I'm 12 years into my entrepreneurial journey, which is a blip on the map dot in comparison to where I hope to be one day and where many other people are. But it's like, I just don't think that feeling ever goes away. And those fears, or the fears of the voices, like, I still think, I'm still over here 30 years old trying to make my family proud.
Oh,
I'm
gosh,
with
And
yeah.
they are proud of
I'm
me.
with you. Yeah.
But it's just like, you always have that, like, feeling. But I think as entrepreneurs or people that are going to pursue, maybe you don't even start your own business, maybe you just are pursuing a career that's a little more off the beaten path. Like, I think letting that unfamiliar feeling become your familiar. Like, that feeling restless or that feeling misunderstood is like, it just comes with it.
The other thing too
That's
is
good.
what I just realized when you were saying that, when you're going down these non-traditional paths, there are no markers that you hit by which people can express their pride. It's not like, I'm
There's
going to be a
usually
doctor.
no path to compare it to.
Right. Like, I'm going to be a doctor, so everybody's going to celebrate and be proud when I finish my bachelor's. They're going to celebrate and be proud when I finish my medical school. They're going to celebrate and be proud when I finish residency.
Yeah.
And you have a different identity with all these things. Like, my mom's not going to go out there and be like, yeah, well,
You
I'm
sold
gonna
your 10th Christmas
yeah,
tree.
I'm going to
you know?
celebrate and
Like-
be proud that she finally vacuumed up the 15 pounds of glitter from her living room floor. You know, but,
Right.
like, that means that she's decorated X number of houses. Like, there are no traditional benchmarks that you hit along the way that kind of give you those little, like, doses of, like,
bragging,
reward center,
like,
you know,
to
like
brag on,
firing
right?
up.
That's
right.
what's hard.
So it's that endless pressure of like,
Yeah.
I need to get there, I need to get there, I need to get there. Well, where are we even, what are we judging this success by?
Yeah.
You know, like it's because you're blazing a new trail. Nobody's
sure.
done it.
That's a good point.
We'll kind of wrap up on this because that was a perfect segue, is to, you know, I think every day, every week, every year, I'm singing the Friends theme song now, like basically, but I start to have a new definition for what success is.
Yeah.
And it's dramatically changed from 18 to 30, what I feel like success is.
Yeah.
So how do you, Blake, define success? What does that look like for you right now?
I think it's a working definition. Absolutely. Probably will change in a year. But right now it is, we briefly mentioned, creating something that someone else gets happiness from, that my existence on this earth maybe results in someone else benefiting. And we talked about the small things like a cup of coffee, all the way to, you know, a big dream would be to see, you know, my Appalachians resurge in a sense, right?
Yeah.
And maybe start a company that employs 250 people,
Right.
And creates some economic growth. Like, that's big dreams, and so that's successful too, but it always ends up falling back. Realize it's partly ministry, partly personality, that I really care about people and I love people a lot. I'm very energized around people, getting to know people, building community, and I think a successful entrepreneurship journey for me would be building that network, that community of people, along with the resources you need to implement, you know, big changes and hopefully maybe start a movement or a cultural shift of thought that kind of changes the way maybe people think in my neck of the woods, my hometown, that I'm still there. I've tried to leave, but I'm back there.
I know.
I'm still
Look at
there.
me,
So
I'm back.
But I love so
There.
much that you're a young person who sees the value in this area, who says, my big dream is to be here and give back to this area.
And have a research.
Because you don't hear that all the time, and it's so
agree.
important.
Agree.
Our area and our culture collectively as Appalachians, my people have been in the Appalachian Mountains since the 1600s. Very few
She
of us
would know that.
have moved outside.
If anybody was going to know that, Lindsay
Very
would know
few of us
that.
have moved outside of a 100-mile radius, which is
That's
very,
impressive.
it's very common actually for this area. And so to hear somebody understand, we as a you know, kind of a culture of Appalachians have had so much taken from us. You know, we're always underestimated. You know, our industry has been taken from us. You know, we've mined out all the coal from these mountains. And it's, you know, so to hear a young person say, I want to give back, I want to put back into this place and recognize the importance of it. And I mean, it's just,
It's
I think
exciting.
it's so
Awesome.
exciting. It's so awesome.
It is exciting. I'm so glad you're here. One day when we have like a Ripple campus, we'll have your coffee and you can design like custom.
Can y'all just let me
gear
hang
for
around
us?
here and
Yes.
like bring you coffee? Like,
You-
I mean, the
Anytime.
energy here. I'm want to hang out.
You
just
can
hang
come
out.
here anytime. This Cumberland is a great place to come and get energized when you need something. You come anytime.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes,
this
thank
has been
you so much. It was
fun.
wonderful.
My
I hope you
pleasure.
come
My
back.
pleasure.
We'll have you come back. We'll get your wife
Anytime.
on here because I think everybody's
Yeah.
going to really love
We need to
hearing what
get
you
her on
say.
here. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Awesome.
Well, thank you guys for listening, and you know, show Blake some love. Follow his.
Right, yeah.
We'll
Lincoln
link
Road
everything.
Coffee Lounge, Wins Company,
Spell wins for us.
WINZE.
Okay.
Yes.
Wins Company.
Not wines. I
Take
do
a
that every
trip
time.
to downtown Norton. Like,
Yes,
just
we're
go
all going
hike,
field trip.
We're going
hike,
to.
bike, get some coffee. Like, that would be awesome. You should
Awesome.
do that.
We're on it. Well, thank you, Blake.
Thank you.
Until
you.
next time.
All right, next time.